We are living in complex times. That's something that everyone is well aware of, and often people talk about it as if it's a troubling thing. And of course, feeling like things are changing really quickly and that we don't know what's going to happen in the future can feel very unsettling. However, there's interesting things that are coming about because of this new understanding of complexity. And one of these things that's emerging is a theory called complex systems theory. And what really interests me about this theory is a smaller segment of this. It's called self-organizing systems. So a self-organizing system is, one example is how communities form within a large infrastructure such as the internet, and we have different social networking groups and different people finding each other and then creating their whatever they want to do. Like, they come together and they create something. And if we look at the natural world, there's examples of self-organizing systems where a bird takes off, another bird sees that bird take off, all of a sudden there's a huge flock of birds that take off, and they fly up into the air, and they form kind of like this beautiful moving cloud. They don't just go off in this system of disarray. They're actually creating a positive feedback loop from each other. They're following and reacting and creating like something that feels like a beautiful dance. So this is something that has occurred in nature, does occur within humanity, but within humanity, we're so interesting, we're a very interesting animal. We've created all of these different ways to have really interesting feedback loops that we create through our technology and our complex social systems. So, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because I'm looking at ways that we can look at a self-organizing system within complex systems theory and create a system of looking at stories and how they fit into a qualitative data set. So creating a way of understanding and looking at systems, looking at these feedback loops, and creating stories that make sense of this. So one of the struggles that we have with storytelling is that we think of it in this way, that there's this one really linear cause-effect of a narrative. So a person wants something, they go after it, they do this, this, and this, and then there's an ending. Whereas that's fine for, creating a piece of work like a book or a movie. Of course, it has to have parameters around it. The book can't go on forever. But with real life, with humanity, there is no end. There's only change and adaptation. And that's what this complex system theory talks about, in particular with self-organizing systems. People interact, and their story and their way of being in the world influences others. The other person takes that in, and then they feed back something to that other person, and these feedback loops occur. So what if we had a way of thinking about stories differently in relation to complex systems like people, change, infrastructure, information, where we're not looking at a linear cause-effect, which is like part of the scientific method, right? There's a cause and effect. But we're now seeing that there are places where that's starting to break down, where cause-effect just opens up a new realm that we don't understand. So we have a cause and effect, but we don't know what the cause was for this other thing because it's outside of the system that we're looking at. We need to look at a bigger context, a bigger system. So how do we start talking about stories in a nonlinear way? And that is through system feedback loops. That is through understanding the influence, understanding the stories that we're telling, understanding the story structure, how that's creating influence, how that's creating the environments that we live in, and then finding ways to document them, not in a way that like this, where we have something happens, something happens, something happens, and then we have like your normal kind of conflict resolution end. Or we look at stories like, here's some pieces of different puzzles where do these different puzzle pieces overlap? Where do they fit together? And I always like to think of stories as a circular process, right? So I find that stories don't really end. They have a place where, of course, we enter the story. So it's not really a beginning, it's just where our awareness overlaps with that event's occurrence. And this is in real life, right? A book has obviously chapter 1. But in real life, there's all these other stories, there's all these other things happening around us. We become aware of one, and then there's an entrance point. And then it takes us on a journey where we make sense of our own entry into that system. And then other stories are overlapping. So it's like an overlapping system of Venn diagrams. And the trick to all this, to understanding qualitatively how this works into what you're trying to achieve, is understanding the big overarching component that's drawing those people together within that system to either tell that story, to believe that story, to reinforce the story that reality, that creates that reality. So that's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about nonlinear storytelling is looking at it from a system of, okay, we have all these different puzzle pieces. We have these puzzle pieces. But those puzzle pieces don't form one complete picture because they're getting feedback from another component, another part of society, another business unit, another family. It could be anything. But their relationship, this relationship, is connected to this relationship. So understanding these connection points and the stories that are linking these up is also very important. So this is part of some content that I'm developing that focuses on how complex systems thinking and also how self-organizing systems work, and by creating a story structure that facilitates that research and that exploration. And if anyone wants to talk to me about this further, I would absolutely love to do so. Please get in touch.